Hey, what's going on, man? We back with another tutorial, and today I want to talk to you about color correction. And I feel like it's something super important that a lot of people don't even do. And if you just follow these simple tips and tricks and all this stuff, I feel like you can improve your color so much. And a lot of people don't know that, but before I actually work from the reference, I always color correct it so I can get more vibrant and juicy colors. And that's how when you paint, you actually get more juicy colors when your reference gets more juicy colors. So I found this picture on Pinterest, and I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna improve the colors. And it really just following just a couple of steps. So the first thing that you have to do, you go to filter, you go to camera raw filter. So there's a lot of buttons and stuff, but really it's super easy. So some of the things that I'll start with increasing the shadows. And really, I feel like a lot of photos, the darks are so dark that you actually can't see a lot of the details. So if you've ever worked from a picture and let's say the hair is darker, you're working from the hair and you're like, I can't really see anything, and that's because the shadows are always like that, right? See the difference, like see how much detail there is in the shadows, right? So always increase the shadows. Then I'm kind of drop the blacks a little bit so you can have more contrast. Usually drop the highlights or the whites depending on the picture and its values, just so you can kind of bring more highlights. Because what usually photographers want is they want like an overblown lightning, because they want their photograph to look more like a model, like a plastic bag. I don't know, it's kind of famous with photographers, but when you're painting, you actually want more of those crisp highlights, and the way to get that is if you lower the highlights. So after I'm done with that, I'll actually go to the temperature. I'll usually make it a little bit more blue, because usually when you photograph something, everything becomes kind of yellowish, so you can kind of bring back that with the temperature. I'll make it a little bit more pink. And then something super important that I always do, you go to the vibrance and you increase the vibrance. And it's actually super different than the saturation, because when you increase the saturation, it just looks kind of fake. It looks like you just painted something on her, right? But with the vibrance, it increases the colors, but it actually just makes them more, exactly vibrant, just alive. So I'll bump that to, like 30-40%. And then you go to camera calibration. And what that does is you can kind of fuck around with the primaries. So you go to the blues, you make all the blues kind of more green. But not only that, but that also makes all of the reds, actually makes them a little bit more pink. So it really just improves the reds as well. But after you do that, you actually kind of have to balance it with the red. So I'll go to the reds and I'll actually make them a little bit more orange, just to kind of bring them back. And then I'll increase the saturation a little bit. I'll kind of see what looks better with the greens, depending on the colors of the artwork. Sometimes it's this way, sometimes it's that way. Usually it's a lot of experimentation. For this artwork, I'm just gonna kind of going fast and showing you what I usually do. But spend your time and just really work with those filters. Like they're just gonna help you so much. I feel like people just take a photo and they're like, oh, it looks already good. You can improve it. You can improve everything. You don't need that many skills. It's super simple. So after I'm done with that, let's decrease the saturation, though I feel like it's too much. You go to this, you go to split toning. And split toning, what it does is it actually colors all the shadows and all the highlights. So you actually can pick a certain color for the shadows, and I almost always go with like something yellowish, because remember, we already brought that shit to like blue. Actually, I'll make it even more blue. And then when you actually go to the split toning, you can actually bring it down with some yellow. And the thing about colors is always balancing them, right? And the thing about a beautiful painting is making all the colors work together, right? Like all the colors have something that just brings them together, and you're like, wow, they belong to the same painting. What a lot of beginners do is they just use a lot of different colors and it just looks awful, right? So the way to actually bring all the colors together is through filters and actually making them work together. So when you make everything more blue, but then you actually make the shadows more orange or yellow, of course you have to be careful not to overdo it, but when you actually do that, it actually brings all the shadows together with a little bit of orange, right? So that's why it's really important to, especially if you're gonna paint this, you know, if you're actually just gonna keep it like a photograph, it doesn't really matter. But if you're gonna paint this, it's really important to bring everything together. So after I'm done with the shadows, I usually go, you know, again, I'll kind of keep them like orange, yellow, something like that. I'll increase the saturation to around like 10-15. Then I'll go to the highlights and I'll actually make the highlights purple or blue, depending on the photo. And I would do that just to kind of like bring a little bit back of the yellowish, because right now it's too yellow. So you should bring a little bit more bluish into the highlights, or a little bit more purple. It is gonna improve it a lot. And then you can actually fuck around with the balance with this slider, and what that does is actually tells the photo exactly where the shadows are and where the highlights are, because that's like too loose of a term, you know. What does the shadow mean? So you can actually, you know, make it a little bit more yellow or a little bit more blue, you know. So that's like a final calibration. And then sometimes I'll go to the HSL, which pretty much means all of the colors, you can kind of tweak them, you know. That's the hue, saturation, and luminance. So I'll kind of, you know, if there's something I want to improve, let's say for example you want the lips to be a little more pink, you go to the red, make them more pink. You want the orange to be a little bit more orange or a little bit more red. Sometimes I will increase, I like, you know, you see kind of on Instagram this really popular filter that all of the blues will be kind of teal. So I'll actually kind of improve the teals a little bit. You can kind of fuck around with the magentas. Actually, there's no magentas here, but it usually gives out a really great effect if you actually go into the magentas and you make them more purple, because it differentiates them from the reds, right? So it's really important to bring first, it's really important to bring all the colors together, and then it's really important to bring them out and actually increase their saturation, right? But it's really important to look at that, like, after you're done with this, you can actually go to the saturation, increase it. But if you didn't do all the steps before that and you just increase the saturation, it's gonna look fake as fuck. So it's really, there's like a process to follow. But really the things that I'm doing in this video are pretty much what I'll do in every artwork, you know, with like a couple of tweaks depending on exactly what colors I'm using. And then finally I'll go to the detail. I'll sharpen it a little bit, just to bring more detail. I'll go to the tone curve. I'll increase the highlights, because, you know, again, we want those crisp highlights, because when you're painting, you really want to be able to see those highlights. You can paint them clearly. I'll do some final touches depending on, you know, how dark the whole photo is. Sometimes you can kind of increase the shadows a little bit, so you can kind of bring that faded look a little bit, and then you just press OK, and here you go. Before and after. Look at that. Look at how much more natural the colors look like. And it's really, that's the key, is for you to make a really subtle change but actually improve so much. Like, look at how before the background looked like super gray and then the skin looked yellow, and now the skin looks red and the background looks blue, you know. So not only did we bring the colors together, but we actually made them different. So that's what I was talking about, is the skill of color calibration is for you to bring everything together, but then actually make it, you know, more vibrant. And then after I'm done with the color, with a camera calibration, I'll go down to the circle. You go to selective color, and that's really just fine toning. And some of the things that I'll do, I'll go to the blacks. I'll bring a little bit of blue. Actually, if you've seen Kim Kardashian Instagram, she actually brought that effect super important. So I'll always make the blacks a little bit more blue, a little bit more purple, just to kind of make them more dark. Maybe a little bit more red. Then I'll go to the whites. I'll make them blue as well, but then it actually becomes way too much blue. So you go to the neutrals and you bring a little bit more orange, a little bit more yellow, sorry. And then I'll go to the reds. I'll make them a little bit more blue. And actually, the way the selective color works is you have cyan, magenta, and yellow, you know, and depending on what slider it is, you know, let's say the cyan, for example, if you say -20 cyan, the opposite of cyan is red. So when you actually decrease the cyan, what you do is you increase the red. When you decrease the magenta, you actually increase the green. When you decrease the yellow, you actually increase the blue, and then you have black and white, right? So you can actually go through every single one of these colors. You know, let's say you want to go to the, you know, for example, the red. So now you go to the reds and you're like, I want all of the reds to have more yellow, or I want all of the reds to have more blue, right? And depending on the artwork, I'll usually go with like the blues having, the reds having a little bit more blue, and I'll go to the magentas, but I don't think this artwork like has any magenta. And that will happen if there's none of this color, you move the sliders and there's none of that, right? But depending on what photo you're calibrating, you can actually go around and play with this, you know. Let's say the blue, yeah, you add a little bit more blue, go to the yellows. I don't think there's a lot of yellow. Usually I'll just go and add a little bit of magenta to the yellow, because that will make it a little bit more orange, and it will just kind of make it a little bit more, you know, saturated. So that's just like again, a really subtle change. I don't know if you can see it, but when you stack all of these changes on top of each other, that's when you get the great effects. And finally, I'll do, you go to image, and there's auto tone, and there's auto color, and those are really just like, just sometimes it depends on the look. For example, look how much better that is if you just press auto color, and that's pretty much just Photoshop doing its magic and just telling you, you know what, that will actually look better. And depending if you like it, you can actually keep it and actually increase the actually just decrease the opacity a little bit. So let me show you the before and after. So that's really what we started with, and just like 5 minutes of editing, that's the colors that you have right now. So again, try out all of these tricks. I'm guaranteeing you're gonna have better colors. And if you don't have great colors, how are you gonna have a great painting, right? And again, look at the lips. Like the lips just have a lot more red. Like look at the skin, it looks vibrant, right? So anyway, I hope this helps. If you haven't seen, I have a Patreon where I teach you all this shit. I teach you how I paint. I teach you, you know, how you can actually get to this point. I answer questions. I have critiques. I have a personal mentorship where I actually have like personal phone calls with you. So check it out, patreon.com/AngelGanef. I really hope it helps. And check out your email. I'm gonna send you, like, from time to time, I'm gonna send you all of these tutorials. So I hope this was useful. I'm gonna talk to you next time. Peace.